Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, here with a fan-based podcast endorsed by Uriah Heep. We're here to talk about the music of Uriah Heep. Right now, we're working on the album Demons and Wizards, and we are on song number 4, Poet's Justice. Now, this song, this song means a lot to me because I have a lot of memories associated with it, but really, this is the song, as I recall, that really hooked me on Uriah Heep as a whole. I'd heard That's the Way That It Is. I'm pretty sure I had heard Stay on Top, a couple of great songs off of Abominog, which we'll get to down the road. But it was when I got a hold of Demons and Wizards and listened to it, this was the song that really just pulled me in about what this band could do, how great they sounded, how great the writing and the performances were. Loved the sound of the album. But this song, there's certain songs that I have weather associations with. I'm sure a lot of you guys, when you think of a song, it brings you back to the way the weather was, maybe the heat of the sun in the summertime as you were playing on the beach when you heard it. Or, you're driving somewhere in the wintertime, maybe you're out Christmas shopping and you hear a particular song, and every time you hear it, you're reminded of how dark the day is and that sort of thing. I don't mean dark as in bad. I mean dark as in, the sun and mood and all that sort of thing. This song for me is very much an autumn song, a cloudy day, chilly air, but just a warmth in the music that is kind of like sitting at the campfire on a really cold day. And I love the lyric of it. I love the harmonies. We're going to get into all the song specifics. But in case you didn't listen to yesterday's episode, and I want to thank you guys too. I got a lot of great feedback from having John Matola on the show. He is the co-host of the Deep Purple podcast, and we're going to get Nate on here at some point. But people really seem to enjoy the show. John's a great guy, and I had a great time talking to him. I've been on their show; they've been on my other show, and it's just a great time of friends getting together and talking about our biggest passion, which is music. And John was gracious enough to spend some time on the show. Thank you, John. Definitely come back and see us again. But I got a lot of great feedback on the show, so thank you guys for tuning in. But if you didn't listen to yesterday's show yet, which was Easy Livin', today I'll just briefly tell you the story again of what happened in case you missed that. So when I was looking for a way to connect with Mick Box to interview him for my other show, the Haskincast podcast, I found the Ask Mick series that he's doing on YouTube on the Uriah Heep channel. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. And I didn't have any other way to get to him. So I thought, well, you know what? I've always been curious about Poet's Justice because while you read about Easy Livin', you read about The Wizard, Gypsy, I've never seen anything on this song at all. And so I thought, well, this would be a great opportunity. And since I wasn't able to figure out how to reach him yet, I thought, you know what? I'll just send the question. Well, of course, in typical fashion, it's like when your computer doesn't work and you call somebody to figure out why your computer doesn't work. As soon as they get on the phone, it starts working, right? So I send the question over to Mick, and that's when I found the link to the management company and all of that, and was able to reach out and get my interview with Mick, which was then the seed that started this podcast because I was able to connect with him and talk to him about the idea of doing it. But so I told him, at the end of the interview, after we had finished up, we had talked about it. I said, by the way, if you had come across this question, you don't have to answer it because he and I had just talked about it. And he laughed and he said, okay. And then lo and behold, it showed up on the website. So I've got the link to it in the show notes. It's episode 69 for Ask Mick. You can also find it on the Uriah Heep YouTube channel, which there's a lot of great stuff. There's Ask Mick, there's Mick Mondays, there's a bunch of stuff that Phil Lanson has done. He's gotten into some of the songwriting aspects, which has really been interesting, doing specific songs from the Uriah Heep albums. He's got a new book coming out, And I've heard one of his 2 solo albums. I haven't had a chance to listen to the other one yet, but let me tell you guys, absolutely fantastic work. He is such a talented writer and musician. Really, really enjoyed that album, and I can't wait to find the time to dig into the next one. It might seem silly that I don't just listen to an album, but when I listen, I really like to just sit down and focus on it as much as possible and really be fair to the artist and give that music my attention. And if I'm just casually listening to it and doing other things, I'm going to miss a lot. And then I really can't get a grip on how I feel about it. And that's not fair to the artist. And honestly, it's not fair to me. I might be missing out on something that is absolutely spectacular because I wasn't paying enough attention. So why bother at all to listen to something the first time, at least, if you're not really going to pay attention? Once you're familiar with the song, you can have it on. You know what the song does. You don't have to pay as much attention. But certainly the first time, you really want to give it a good shot. So anyway, the link for Mick Mondays is in the show notes. You just click on the channel and you get all the other stuff. So it's a great opportunity. And he's in the 80 questions somewhere now. And this was question 69. And I was so surprised when I saw it. I got an email that the question had made it to air. And of course, I knew who sent it. But at the same time, it was like, I didn't expect that because I said, don't worry about it. And there it was anyway. A lot of fun. He made a fun reference to our interview, too, which I really enjoyed. So thank you for that, Mick. So we're here to talk about the song Poet's Justice. And, God, I just love this song. It's part nostalgia for me, obviously, because it's like really the first song that just, wanted me to soak in the pool of Uriah Heep. But also, it's just a great song. I mean, that's why it gripped me in the first place, because it's there's just a lot to it that I really enjoy. It has all the elements. And little did I know at the time how great of a representation of Uriah Heep this song really is, because it really has everything that the band was focused on at that time. It's got, the great music, the harmonies, all that. And it's just a great song. So I say at this point, we just dive right in. Here is Poet's Justice from Demons and Wizards. I sounded like Casey Kasem there. Okay, I didn't. But before we start the song, I want to give a huge shout out to our friend at the Deep Dive Podcast Network, Terry T-Bone Mathley, whose new show, Prime Cuts, The Other Side, just started airing this week. It is absolutely fantastic. One episode in, I'm already hooked. He has been in the business for quite some time. He is an incredibly talented interviewer. It felt very, very natural, very intelligent questions, great dynamic between him and his guest. And check that out. The link is in the show notes for all the Deep Dive podcasts. And also, you can find it on, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, I think is where I listen to it. But you can listen to it right on his website. So just click on that link and it'll take you to the episode. Fantastic stuff. Congratulations, Terry. I'm very excited for you. I cannot wait for the next episode. But right now, we get back to the song. I have a pretty sharp set of ears, but I can't tell if there's a guitar following along with the vocals or if that's another voice. Either way, it's a very interesting accompaniment to the main harmony there. I really like that. But right off the bat, you're starting off with good power. You're being brought into something. You feel that something is about to happen. And I really like that. I think it's a great opening. The drums sound fantastic on this mix. Love it. The vocals are fantastic. It's just we're kicking off another great song. And this is, if you think about it in the context, this is coming off of that really powerful ending from Easy Livin' and then going into this. So it really flows very nicely from one song into another. I don't know how they decided the song placement for the album, but when I do mine, that's a big part of how I choose the order of the songs. I mean, you have to consider key, you have to consider tempo, you have to consider, is it heavy, is it light, how do you want the album to flow? But that's a big part of it, is how does it feel to go from the ending of one song into the beginning of the next? And I think that of all the songs on the album, I really think that this was the perfect follow-up for Easy Livin'. And I think back to when I thought Traveler in the other version I had, or in my memory, when I thought Traveler in Time came after Easy Livin', it's really kind of interesting that I think this just flows better. So I'm glad, at least on this version, that's the way it is. I still have not found a version that has it that way. So I'm thinking it must have been on cassette or something weird that I had that, and that's why that's in my head. But in any case, let's hear some more.
Cold winds and cloudy skies turn to sweetness in her eyes. Fantasies I realize came to life to my surprise.
God, it's just such a beautiful verse, isn't it? I love the way that that's put together with the backing vocals, the strong drums. And I don't know if you've noticed or not. I don't think I noticed this until a while in. And as a drummer, usually I'm pretty focused on that. But the song is so good, I don't necessarily focus in on the drums all the time. But there's an interesting progression that's played during the verse, during the words of the verse on the hi-hat, where he's hitting a little gently at first and he hits it a little harder towards the end of it. And he keeps repeating that as the dialogue is being delivered. So that's pretty interesting too. Nice little bass licks in there, just a good strong sound to this altogether. But very, very vocal driven here, and just sounds wonderful.
Rain came and took her away just when I thought she was here to stay. Sun gone, I was left high and dry. Love came by and touched me and kissed me so long.
I really like that part between the lines where, you know, the music changes, but the drums change with it. I really think that's a pretty cool thing. And, you know, obviously the guitar, the organ are very powerful here. And it's a great lyric. You know, I think we've all had those people that at some point in our lives that no matter how bad things are, you know, how bad of a day you're having or whatever, when you think of them, it just all melts away. Or, you know, they call you or say hello or whatever it is. And just something about them just kind of takes all the darkness out of the day and brings you some light and warmth. And so it's, at least for me anyway, it's very easily identifiable as far as the story so far goes. But God, just what a great package the whole song is. And I love that little lead into the next verse from Mick, the part that we heard at the end of that clip. Really cool. And it's a really nice segue into the next section. I kind of liked that there was just a little stoppage and then a little bit of flavor going into the next part. It's a great way to change things and put something interesting in the song that doesn't just keep going back to the repetitive stuff. Very cool. I don't know if you've noticed, but these drum fills are very similar to the drum fills that were played in Easy Livin'. They're just a little bit slower. It's that combination of toms and snare. You know, a lot of drummers will play the snare and then hit the toms, or the toms and then hit the snare. But there's something also about this style of Uriah Heep that was laid down, I would say, before Lee Kerslake joined, where there was a lot of the more of a combination. You know, tom, snare, snare, tom, snare, tom kind of thing, and just going back and forth between the drums. There was some early bands that did that kind of thing. You don't hear it as much anymore. It seems like drummers these days are, you know, I'm going to do the fill on the snare, or I'm going to do the fill on the toms, or I'll start with the snare and go to the toms, but they don't really go back and forth as much. And it's really nice to hear that in the middle of a song. You'll get a lot of that in a drum solo. but not as much in songs, at least not the stuff I've heard in the last few years, except for bands that were from this era where they understand that, that side of the snare that's really powerful and poppy, and then the melodic sound of the toms, and that really nice blend and mix of the two as they go back and forth. And I really like that. And the other thing I wanted to mention too, that I haven't really talked about, was the bass playing on this song. The mix for the bass is very interesting. There's a lot going on, but the bass is not, there's not a lot of treble on it. So some of it's a little bit buried. The bass is a little bit muddier sounding. You feel the bass. It's almost like it's just laying down this layer of fog, but you can't see really specifically as easily as in other songs what it's doing. But it's quite active and it's really nice. I kind of like that mix for this song. I don't think I would like it if it were the whole album. Like in Easy Livin', we heard the bass a lot more clearly. Here, it's just it's blended a little bit differently, and I really like the way it sounds. I think it's nice to have something move without having to draw attention, except in little spots where you kind of hear it cut through. So very well mixed, but very creative playing that allows the space for that mix to come in and sound good. I don't think I've really talked about this yet in any of the episodes, but one thing I really do love about David Byron's style is that he has this beautiful way of knowing when to sing a note smoothly, when to add vibrato, how fast or slow that vibrato should be. I mean, that is really what you want in a vocalist, somebody that really knows how to make their voice an instrument and not just sing the words on key or hit all the notes, but somebody that can really make it feel like you're on that journey with them, that your story is the story that they're telling, even if it's not. And most of the time it's not. But they kind of just bring you in with those techniques and really make it a personal thing. And I love that. I think he's one of the best at finding that balance between the two, knowing when to pull which tool off of the tool belt and really add that dynamic to the song that it would otherwise be missing. Well, first of all, that just kicks ass. I mean, there's no way around that. But there's so many things going on here. What I really love about the first part is where you have guitars. If you're listening through headphones or earbuds, you can probably hear it a little bit better. But the rhythm guitar on the right ear is playing just very solid, a good amount of distortion. The guitar in the left ear is really utilizing some feedback and sounds really good. It sounds like there's maybe a whammy bar being used there. Just that wah, 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 that sort of repetitive dip and pull back of the string. But it sounds really good. I love that. It's subtle, but it's blended in very, very well. And it just adds, again, just another layer to things. And then we've got that part, where Ken Hensley is playing the scale on keyboards, and then a nice vocal part. But what we're about to hit next, so there's this thing that I have termed, this is unofficial, but I have termed a comeback part. And what I mean by that is when the story or the music of a song leads you to feel like you're losing, you're being beaten down, you're not going to triumph, there's this part where the music or the vocals find a resolution and they regain their strength and say, no, I'm going to charge back and I'm going to win this. And if I could think of an example, I would say, in Gypsy, where the character is saying, I'm going to go and gather my strength and train, and I'm going to come back and win this victory. And an outside of Uriah Heep reference would be, the song Super Trooper by Deep Purple from Who Do We Think We Are? There's just that, the music kind of builds up at the end of the solo. And he comes in with, I want to be like I was before. And, he's saying, this is how it's going to be. And it's moments like that in the songs that can be done either musically or vocally, but you feel a resolve, a triumph, at least the belief that you're going to win or that you're going to give it everything that you've got. And what comes up here musically, what Ken Hensley plays, really kind of feels like that to me. It's not so much lyrically. It's not really so much anything else in the song, because we're really just about to repeat the first verse again and just go back to that. You know what? This whole thing sucks. Rain took her away. I just want to be whole. But now we're going back into here's why I love her to begin with. And I like that. So it's a different kind of resolve. But musically, to me, it's always felt a little bit powerful, especially, as the keyboard gives way to guitars at the end of this next little section that we're going to hear. It's just incredibly powerful to me. And I think this part was the first really big hook for me. I mean, I enjoyed the song, but when I heard this, I was like, wait a minute, what did they just do? And I went back and listened to it a few times. I remember this. And I just absolutely fell in love with this part of the song. And this was what really hooked me on the song and the band and, potentially why I'm here doing this podcast. How crazy is that? But it's really cool stuff. And listen to, what the keyboards play when it goes into the chord, the heavy chord, and as it gives way to guitar. It's just a beautiful blend and very powerful. So let's hear that next. Well, it's a little more buried in this mix, but as Mick Box starts playing guitar after that run from Ken, Ken hits a chord that's very powerful that blends so beautifully with Mick, but it's just a little bit quiet in this mix. I don't know if you guys feel that same sense of empowerment in the music that I do, but that section right there, it means a lot to me. I really love that. I love the writing. I love the feel. I love the play. And I love how it just goes back into the third verse. It's a beautiful transition. One of my favorite. Every time, even now, I've heard this song how many hundreds of times, and it still just blows me away. It's very powerful to me. Now I'm going to play this one more time, and if depending on the headphones or earbuds or whatever you're listening to, in your left ear, you can actually hear the key clicks from the Hammond B3, which is really cool. And then, man, just the powerful notes and things that Mick is playing right there going into that vocal is just, I couldn't have picked a note that could have been played better, honestly. And I really mean that. It's just a fantastic little section. It's so short, but it's enough to just, come in and leave an imprint and go. Really beautifully done. I'm glad that there wasn't a long drawn out solo section in the song. It's just, it's to the point. It's a powerful punch and into the vocal. Really well done. Love that trailing off of the vocals, just kind of sinks into the sea. Just really, really beautifully done. And, the music is solid. Nothing's really changed through the whole thing. Not anything that would be noticeable enough to throw you off. It just keeps that pace, keeps the strength. It doesn't thin out anywhere. Just really beautiful. And now we're heading towards the end. And let's see what they have to offer to finish this one off. That was a nice little MIDI concert ending there to that. I like that. Really, really nice work on the bass drum there, and just great vocal to repeat the first part. I'm convinced that's a voice I'm hearing and not a guitar following along in a higher register there. There may be a guitar along with it, but I'm positive what I'm hearing is a voice. Very well crafted harmony. It's like everyone's singing together and there's one other voice that's kind of singing apart from everyone else. But beautifully, beautifully done. Great mix. Well blended, just a great song from beginning to end. And see, this is what's important to me, guys. This is about the music. It's not about the politics. It's not about who did what. It's not about what was going on in the band, who was fighting, who was drinking, who was doing drugs or causing problems. It's not about that. All that stuff happened, whatever it was, happened at that time. It's all in the past. The thing that stays is the music. The music will be around forever. It's immortal. And that's the important part to focus on. And in this to me, like I said, very personal, very great song. Absolutely love it from beginning to end. And I'm really happy that I got a chance to share that with you guys today. And, before we wrap up, and mainly because I forgot to do this at the beginning, but I think it'd be a nice way to end the week with a couple of reviews that we got on Apple Podcasts. Actually, it looks like we have 3 now, which is super cool. Thank you guys very much. Much appreciated. The first one is by Chef Elf, and it is labeled A Heap of Fun. Nicely done. Going into the show, I had nothing but a passing knowledge that Uriah Heep existed. Now I'm several albums in and angry that no one told me about Heep in my youth. Scott is an excellent host who takes great care in reviewing the songs and sharing his great knowledge of this band. Whether you're a longtime fan or just discovering Heep, the podcast is a much listen. Thank you, Chef Elf. Very nice review. I really appreciate that. I'm glad that was a big part of what I had hoped to do with this show, was not only give fans of the band, whether new or longtime fans, something else to enjoy related to the music, but also, to help people discover the band that hadn't connected with them yet. And, I get letters all the time, and things on Twitter and stuff that show me that this is what's happening, and that really means a lot to me. That's I'm not going to say that I'm checking that off the list because that's ongoing forever. So there's that. But thank you very much. The next review is by TBPC, and it is labeled endorsed by Uriah Heep, which is true. We are. This is where to go to learn about Heep. I didn't know enough about them going in, but I'm learning, and it's endorsed by the band itself. You can't possibly get any better than that. For the band to trust someone with their history speaks volumes. And you know what? That's true. There is not a day that I work on this show, which is pretty much 7 days a week. But there is not a day where I work on the show where I don't think about that and have great respect and appreciation for that. That's pretty huge. And, to get to work with the band, to get to know a couple of the guys so far. And it's just really been an amazing experience. So I've gotten a lot out of this too. But thank you, TBPC. Very, very nice review. I appreciate it. And the final review here is by B.G. Burt. And it says, for decades, I felt like I was the only person who fully appreciated Heep's music. This incredible podcast, I'm just going to read that again. This incredible podcast has shown me how wrong I was. I'm not a musician and have absolutely no musical experience, but these deep dives have allowed me to listen to my favorite band from a whole new perspective. Thank you, Scott. Well, you're welcome. And that was titled I'm Not Alone. And no, you're not. There are a ton of Uriah Heep fans around the world. When we talk about how the popularity of the band is, it's really what I talk about is just the people that I know in America. It seems like a lot of the people I know in Europe are very familiar with the band. And but for some reason, even though when I've gone to the shows, you know, the houses are packed. It's not they're not lacking for patrons by any means. But when you talk to people about it, you're like, hey, have you heard this song? Or, you know, I really like this song by Uriah Heep. They're like, oh yeah, yeah, which song was that again? And they just don't connect. Like, they know the music and they know the name of the band, but they haven't made that connection. So Uriah Heep does make an impact on those people. They just don't know that it's Uriah Heep. So hopefully I'm helping to clear up some of that and bridge that gap. And I've had several people write me, and it tells me that that's what's going on. So thank you guys very much for the reviews. Please keep them coming. I will happily read them on the show. And, if you didn't listen to yesterday's show on Easy Living with my co-host, John Matola, I would suggest going back and listening to that and then checking out their show on Sunday. Comes out Sunday night. Most of them you can catch on YouTube, although some of the shows get kicked off YouTube because of YouTube. And there are rules as far as copyrighted music, what you can do and what you can't do. We always try to do it. I've had a couple of shows of my other podcasts get kicked off there. And because I'm doing the songs, they're all with different publishers, and it would kind of be a mess. I did talk to the band's management about that up front to see if we could get my channel cleared. But honestly, there's so many different people that have control of that. It would be a constant uphill battle, which is why the show is not on YouTube. In fact, now when I'm doing my album reviews and stuff on the Haskincast podcast, I don't even bother putting them up on YouTube. They're just going to get booted off. So why bother? And I'm not doing anything that I feel is disrespectful to the bands by playing their music. I'm doing a review of it to get people interested, to get them excited, to hear a little snippet of what the album is like. And maybe they'll go check it out for themselves, whether it's on Spotify or whether they'll purchase it, whatever it is, to connect them with music that I personally really enjoy. Sometimes I've done ones that I'm not familiar with at all. I just recently did Blackmore's Night's new Christmas EP, and I had only heard two of the songs, the two that they had released prior to the full EP coming out. And the other two, the first time I heard them was when I was prepping them for the show. So, it's a mix of what you get, but yeah, their show is most often on YouTube, but you can also catch them at deeppurplepodcast.com. That link, once again, is in the show notes in the section towards the bottom where I list all of the shows in the Deep Dive Podcast Network. And thank you guys for joining me. Happy Friday. I hope you have a great weekend. We will be back on Monday to dig into the next song on the Demons and Wizards album. Cheers, guys. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show. And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!